Okay, so this one is pretty much going to be my scariest work to date. Um, this is on a book called The Trial by Franz Kafka. And not many novels really like to ask whether justice exists. Kafka asks something a lot more disturbing. What if justice exists absolutely, but human beings are structurally incapable of comprehending it? That single inversion transforms the trial from political satire into literal metaphysical horror. The novel begins with one of the most famous opening sentences in literature. Joseph K. awakens one morning to discover that he's been arrested. No explanation is offered, no accusation is made, no evidence is presented. Stranger still, he is not imprisoned. He's allowed to continue his daily life almost exactly as before. The arrest changes nothing externally, it changes everything internally. This distinction is essential. The court does not first imprison Joseph's body, it colonizes his consciousness. Everything that follows is the gradual transformation of a man who initially believes he is investigating a mystery into a man who slowly becomes the mystery himself. At first, Joseph behaves exactly as modern readers expect. He is rational, confident, slightly irritated. Surely, this is a misunderstanding. Surely, there exists some procedural error. Surely, reality is fundamentally intelligible. But this assumption is never stated outright, yet it governs everything he does. Joseph belongs to the modern world, a world built upon the faith that every problem possesses a solution if only enough information can be gathered. Kafka mantles this chapter by chapter, as each conversation clarifies nothing. Each official possesses authority while understanding almost nothing. Each document produces further ambiguity. Each staircase leads not upward but inward. Knowledge accumulates, understanding diminishes. This is Kafka's most terrifying part. The confusion is not always the absence of information. Sometimes it's the consequence of possessing too much. Most novels imagine ignorance as darkness awaiting illumination. Kafka imagines understanding itself becoming like a labyrinth. Every answer generates new corridors. Every corridor opens into another locked room. One gradually realizes that the architecture of the court resembles consciousness itself in a way. The closer one attempts to approach the center, the more the center recedes. This is why the physical spaces of the trial matter quite profoundly, as almost every important scene occurs in locations that feel slightly wrong. Attics become courtrooms. Apartment buildings conceal judicial chambers. Narrow staircases twist unexpectedly. Offices seem simultaneously public and hidden. The atmosphere itself feels exhausted. Kafka is constructing a geography of inwardness. These buildings do not just contain the court. They externalize Joseph's increasingly fragmented consciousness. As Dante descended the circles of hell, Joseph ascends staircases that paradoxically lead deeper into uncertainty. Vertical movement no longer promises transcendence, it merely rearranges confusion. The most unsettling feature of the court is not its power, it is its impersonality. No singular tyrant directs events. Instead, there's not even a final villain awaiting confrontation, right? Authority exists without a discernible center. Every official answers to another official, who answers to yet another, and the hierarchy approaches infinity. This distinguishes Kafka from someone like Orwell. Orwell fears oppressive rulers. Kafka fears systems so vast that rulers themselves no longer understand them. Powers become autonomous, right? So one begins to wonder whether anyone governs the court or whether the court has become a living organism that perpetuates itself independently of those serving within it. Centuries earlier, Milton imagined hell as a kingdom. Kafka imagines bureaucracy becoming metaphysics. Perhaps the novel's deepest transformation insists on the idea that Joseph begins the story insisting on his own innocence. He ends it almost unable to imagine that innocence exists. And Kafka never proves him guilty, nor does he prove him innocent. The categories themselves begin dissolving. Joseph gradually internalizes the court's gaze. He starts behaving as though accusation alone possesses moral force. This anticipates people often become what they believe they are continually perceived to be. Identity emerges partly through attention. The court never fully explains Joseph. It teaches Joseph to explain himself according to its own logic. This is ideological possession in its purest form. There's a remarkable scene involving a painter named Titorelli. Joseph hopes artists might understand what lawyers cannot. Instead, he learned something awful, just devastating. There were apparently three possible outcomes to every trial: actual acquittal, apparent acquittal, and indefinite postponement. Only the first would constitute genuine freedom, being actual acquittal. No one has ever witnessed it. The second merely creates the appearance of liberation while leaving the accusation permanently intact. And the third extends the process indefinitely without resolution. Kafka suggests that modern existence often mistakes postponement for freedom. We postpone confronting death. We postpone confronting guilt. We postpone confronting meaning. The trial continues. Only the calendar changes. Then comes something you want to reference as like a parable. The priest tells Joseph a story. A man arrives before the law. A gatekeeper tells them he cannot enter, not yet. The man waits. Years pass. His entire life becomes organized around the possibility of entrance. Finally dying, he asks why no one else has sought admission. The gatekeeper answers, "This entrance was meant only for you. Now, I'm going to close it." Few passages in literature contain this many interpretations regarding just this one part. Some include that the law may be God, truth, authenticity, the self, death, meaning. Yet every reading converges upon one realization: the greatest barriers are often those we consent to. The gate was never physically locked, it was psychologically occupied. The man required permission from the very thing he sought. How many lives unfold this way? How many people spend decades awaiting authorization to become who they already possess the capacity to become? Kafka refuses to answer that. He merely leaves the gate standing in silence. What's horrific is the manner of his death. Two officials arrive, they escort him outside the city. Joseph offers almost no resistance. Eventually, one of them places a knife into another's hand. Joseph himself guides the blade toward in his own heart. The executioners scarcely need to kill him, as the court has already accomplished its work. He dies, Kafka writes, like a dog. Readers often mistake this as an insult. It's something like a lot sadder. A dog cannot narrate its own death. It cannot integrate its existence into a coherent story. It simply perishes. Joseph dies without ever discovering the meaning of his accusation. Without understanding his own life, Joseph dies without ever discovering the meaning of his accusation. Without understanding his own life, without reconciling himself either to innocence or guilt. His tragedy is not mortality, it is incomprehension. What makes the trial extraordinary is that it refuses to identify the true source of guilt. Christian theology generally locates guilt in sin. Greek tragedy often locates it in fate. Modern psychology frequently locates it in repression or trauma, and Kafka proposes something radically different. Perhaps consciousness itself generates guilt. To become aware of oneself is already to experience insufficiency. One immediately senses the distance between what one is and what one ought to become. The court may simply be that distance given architectural form. This book is like Kafka's final gift to literature. He transforms uncertainty from an obstacle into the very substance of human existence. We're not creatures who occasionally encounter mystery, we're creatures constituted by it. The trial is not an event that happens to Joseph after he awakens one morning. The trial begins the moment a human being first asks the question, in truth, who am I?